everyone, and welcome to the Peddling Princess Podium. I'm your host, John Ardelli, and tonight I'm back at the McConnell Memorial Library again, and this time for a presentation by Dr. Chris Milburn on cycling injuries and medicine. There are a lot of people out there who would like to try cycling, but many, especially those living in downtown areas, fear trying it because they're too afraid to ride in traffic. In addition to being a respected emergency room physician, Dr. Milburn is an avid cyclist himself who rides in traffic regularly. Before he began his presentation, he put the risks of traffic cycling in perspective.
Over the last number of years, I've seen tons of people who started out saying, I could never cycle on the roads, I'm really too nervous to cycle around cars, I want to get back on the bike, but I'll only go on dirt roads and trails, and that's as much as I'll ever do. A number of these people who have been adamant that they'll never cycle on the road have come out and learned a ride course done by Velo each spring, and they've gone from I'll never ride on the road to being very confident cyclists and people you see around very regularly on the roads now. It's a great course. It's taught by experienced folks within the club who will teach you the sort of the rules of the road, seeing the road from a bicycling perspective and how to safely maneuver your way around the roads. One thing I like to say as a doc, bicycling is very safe. All the guys in this room, you have a 1 in 2 chance of dying prematurely of heart disease or stroke. All the women, it's about 1 in 3. Your chance of dying in an accident on a bicycle is about 1 in a million kilometers traveled. So you can put those risks in perspective and realize that you can take down risk number 1 a lot by accepting that minimal risk number 2. So cycling, I don't see many injuries caused by just regular cycling, but I do see a lot of aches and pains. And unfortunately, I think a lot of these aches and pains are bad enough that they actually stop people from cycling, which is a real shame. And there's almost always a solution. And one of the reasons that I really discourage people from going and buying a bike at Canadian Tire or Wal-Mart or even like Sport Check that has a little bit better bikes. I've seen so many people go there and they come and they show me the bike. Oh look, I got this great bike for $400. It was regularly $600. And Sport Check sold it to me for $400. And look, it looks great and it's shiny and it's nice. And you look at them and right off the bat, even before they stand on it, I'm saying, you know what, that bike is the wrong size for you. Yeah. And it's either way too huge and they're extended, or it's too small and they're not going to be able to get into a comfortable position on it. If you're going to get a bike yourself, or you know anybody who's going to buy a bike, tell them to put in that extra $100 or $200. Go to a proper shop like Framework here in town, or if they want to go somewhere else, that's fine. But you know, go to a proper shop and get somebody who's experienced and knows bikes to get them on the proper size bike, because it's so critical. You can have a $5,000 14-pound bicycle, and if it doesn't fit you, it's going to be a horrible experience. Your sit bones, those bones that you can actually feel yourself sit on, they're called your ischial tuberosities. And for all of us, they're a different width. The average saddle that comes off the shelf on a bike is generally on the narrow side for the average human being. The idea with the seat is it's supposed to support those 2 bones. You can imagine if they're too wide, you're going to slip down and all the pressure is on what's called your perineal area, right? And that's not good. You can certainly get a seat that's wide enough for you, but if the contour of the seat is wrong, so if it's too high in the middle, again, it might support your ischial tuberosities, but not without putting pressure on your perineal area. Seat tilt is very important. If you're tilted back too far, obviously that's bad, because the nose of the saddle is going to be banging you where you don't want to get it. If you're tilted too far forward, what happens is, even without you knowing it, you're going to constantly slip forward down to the narrow part of the saddle. And again, you're not going to be supported on that wide back part of the saddle, you're going to be supported on your perineum on the narrow front part of the saddle. Seat height is important. If you're too high, what happens is, to reach the bottom of the pedal stroke, you have to tilt your pelvis down. And what you end up doing is grinding your pelvis back and forth to reach the bottom of the pedal stroke on both sides. If your seat is too low and you're cycling like this rather than like that, you put your knee in a very unnatural position, right? Your knee is not really meant to work at extreme angles, right? When we walk, when we run, our knee bends about this much and then straightens again. That's where our knee is most efficient and most strong. Everybody has this idea that, oh, my seat's uncomfortable, I need something that's bigger, softer, squishier, and then it'll be more comfortable, right? The problem with that is, you can imagine if you're sitting on something squishy, your sit bones actually sink into it, and all that gel squeezes up into your perineum. In most cases, what I see happening is the person's seat might be too narrow for them, it might be tilted wrong, there's something wrong with the setup of the seat, and they stick a gel cover on thinking it's going to make it better, and it inevitably makes it worse. Shoulder pain. Normal human posture is something like this. On the bike, it's like this, right? Yeah. And that's a little bit unnatural. With shoulder pain in the spring, the main thing that I tell people is you can ride through it. So don't panic, keep riding, and typically within a couple of weeks of regular riding, this is going to settle down for you. The most common cause of that, handlebars that are too low. So you imagine the lower you are, the more the position your neck has to come into. As your handlebars are up, your neck relaxes more. It's not just handlebar height, but also handlebar width. Typically, if your handlebars are too narrow, that's going to cause more pressure on your neck. If your handlebars should be approximately shoulder width. Foot pain, the most common type of foot pain is hot spots. Hot spots are largely curable by getting a good pair of shoes. So a cheaper pair of shoes won't have as much supportive material in the sole, and the pressure of that cleat is sort of directly through onto your foot. A higher end shoe has like a good stiff sole that kind of spreads that force out over a larger part of your foot, and in most cases will eliminate that hot spot problem. Sometimes the exact positioning of that cleat, which is adjustable, can make a difference. If it's too far forward, too far back, it can be just at the wrong part of your foot to put pressure on a sensitive part of your foot. Knees. As you move through the bicycling motion, your kneecap moves up and down in a groove. People tend to get pain in front of their knees. They get achy around the kneecaps, and that's usually what that's from. It's just from that constant up and down movement. Issues with hands. Number one, some people just get pressure points and they just get sore hands. That's relatively curable by gloves for most people. By buying a pair of cycling gloves with a little bit of padding, it can take the pressure off. Carpal tunnel syndrome, which many of us have heard of, is a compression of the median nerve, which is the nerve that runs up through your little notch here in the middle base of your palm, and it runs up to your thumb and your first finger and a half or so. You notice you're a little numb and achy in that area. That's from pressure on that median nerve, just pushing on it kind of deadens the nerve over time. How do you cure that? That type of discomfort is a lot more common on flat bar bikes. The downside of a flat bar bike is you have no other choice. You have one position. A curved handlebar bike gives you several different hand positions. You can be down like this, you can be up like this, you can be over like this, you can be on top of your brake hoods like that. So you can vary your position around over if you're out riding for a few hours, and you don't put pressure on that exact same part of your hand for the whole ride. Low back pain on the bike, to me, screams your bike doesn't fit you. It's usually from a too extended position or a too low position that you can't tolerate. There's almost nobody I've met with disc problems, lower back disc problems, who can't get back on a bicycle. In fact, there's a whole list of professional athletes, professional cyclists, professional triathletes who are in that really low position for 180 kilometers riding their bike, who've had disc surgeries and major disc issues and get back on the bikes. They may have to come back and have a bit of a different fit than they did in their younger, less injured days, right? They may have to change their fit a little bit to make it work for them. Oh yeah, everybody can bike.
So, in a nutshell, if you've ever tried cycling and didn't like it because you got sore, chances are it's because the bike didn't fit you. I know. I used to ride a badly fitted bike myself. You won't believe what a difference a good quality bike, properly fitted for you, makes. When you have the right bike for you, nothing feels quite so free as gliding down the open road on two wheels.
Well, that's it for the Pedaling Princess Podium this week. I'm your host, John Nardelli, and I hope to see you all again here next week. Bye for now.